Reunited, and it feels so good. Yeah, you know that it's Ian Cameron from Sportsbook Review when he's cracking out Peaches and Herb references from the 70s. But we're back. We're rocking it. It is season 2 of the best damn hockey betting show on YouTube. It's the NHL Ice Guys. I'm Ian Cameron, thrilled to be back for another season and thrilled to welcome 3 guys that I worked with last season on this show. Had a lot of fun doing it. Alex B. Smith, he's back. Andrew McGinnis, he's back. Dana Lane from Las Vegas, he's back. And then we're going to also welcome a brand new member, a new line mate, as I like to say, to the team this year for the NHL Ice Guys. Jimmy Murphy, extensive background in hockey, doing articles, media stuff, covering the Boston Bruins for multiple outlets for a very, very long time. Thrilled to have him on the show. Let's get an opening thought from everybody. Alex, let's start with you. Excited for the hockey season ahead, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always a good time of year. The weather changing, kind of cooling off and so forth. But, October is always just a great month for sports alone. But having hockey starting this early as well, it's always a good time, good feel. He said, we've been seeing lines up for preseason games now. He said having hockey in Vegas has really expanded, everybody's eyes now as far as the betting aspect goes. And so it should be an exciting season, and I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. Andrew McGinnis, Montreal Canadiens fan, made a bold prediction or a bold tweet a few days ago saying, watch this Montreal Canadiens team. They might be better than people think. Is it a homer talking or is there something to it? Andrew, how are you?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, it's great to see all you guys. There's something special about being back on the show with all you guys. It's kind of nice. You got the season 2, same crew, and of course, a brand new member. Great to have him as well. And you know what? I followed the preseason a lot closer than I usually do, Ian. It was a lot of great hockey, a lot of very high scoring games, and I think that we're going to see a lot of 6s for totals this year. We're going to see a lot more 6.5s than we saw last year, I think. And I'm looking forward to a great year. I think the National Hockey League is going to be very, very competitive league this year. And regarding my Habs, Ian, I'm not saying they'll be great. The tweet was they're not going to be as bad as people think. So I'll touch on that as we move on in these shows, but it's great to see all of you guys.
Yeah, you're not kidding, Andrew. I mean, across all sports now, you're looking at it when you're betting unders these days, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, regardless of the sport, you stick a clothespin on your nose, you close your eyes and say a few prayers. That's basically what you do, and you just hope for the best. I mean, it is every league and every sport is trying to make it beneficial to offenses and trying to increase scoring, more points, more goals, more touchdowns. I mean, you're seeing it. That's what they want, and that's what they're trying to get. Dana Lane from Las Vegas. The Golden Knights were the story of the year last year in the NHL. They've got a hell of an encore to try to follow. So does Dana, because he's one of those entertaining guys that he's going to give you all these little liners off the air that are just, little, dry humor, as I like to say. Dana Lane back with us. How are you?
Yeah, well, here's my first one. And it's amazing, Andrew, the confidence level that Montreal Canadiens have when you finally are back to 500, which you are this morning. Unfortunately, you have to play a game and then you go back under 500 and you're like, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were. But I will say this about the about the Vegas Golden Knights, guys. This is pure lunacy here. I was at every exhibition game. Every exhibition game sold out. These guys had no idea that it was an exhibition game. And, honestly, I mean, this town is ready for the National Hockey League to start. I mean, it's insane how they just basically picked right up where they left off. I mean, this was a team that's been off for a couple months, and now it's, basically back to the grind again, and the city's ready for it for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, you only, I think, beat the Florida Panther preseason attendance figures by 20 times more, 50 times more. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it is absolutely amazing because the first game I was there, I went a little bit late, so I was listening to it on the radio, and the roof was coming off. I mean, it's like a preseason game, guys. I mean, you're supposed to relax, kind of take this thing in stride, but it's amazing what this city has done in the backing towards this team and the relationship between the team and the city.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's like, take a chill pill, guys. You do realize you have 82 regular season games and hopefully, I think the postseason ahead. So, yeah, take it easy a little bit. Jimmy Murphy, let's welcome him into the show. He's been following hockey for a very long time, a couple of decades now, more than that. Done a lot of media work. Has covered the Boston Bruins very closely, and we're thrilled to have him on the show as our new member here of the Ice Guys. Jimmy, welcome to the NHL Ice Guys, and looking forward to being with you all season long.
Yeah, guys, it's great to be here. I'll just tell you right now, if I hope I'm not choppy when I'm talking here because my connection seems to be a little off. But I think this is going to be a great season. I think it's a lot more wide open than I heading into a season. Of course, it ends up always being that way when we hit the playoffs. But I think that you look at this season. Let's start in the East. I mean, there's a handful of teams that could contend for the Stanley Cup that could come out on top in the regular season as well. And then the West is just loaded now. And I mean, I think the way I look at it now, I think that, Vegas isn't getting enough respect. I think they deserve much more respect. I think they're a contender. I heard Dame talking about them there. But I look at the San Jose Sharks, and overall, I just think that team is the team to beat. Looking into this season right now, they remind me tremendously of the Anaheim Ducks in 2003 when they had Pronger and Niedermeyer on that blue line. So I think they're the team to beat, and I see them I'm going to say right now, I see them hoisting the cup in June.
Well, when you go out and get an Erik Karlsson, and obviously Doug Wilson pulled off that trade with the Ottawa Senators, getting him in there, that's a loud and clear statement to everybody in the organization, and especially some of those veteran guys, your Joe Pavelskis, your Logan Coutures that have been there for a while. It's time to win a Stanley Cup. We want to, and that's obviously speaks volumes to the team that, hey, you're going for it this season. So, yeah, San Jose Sharks, one of many teams. It'll be fascinating to see how they perform this season. You mentioned, can Vegas follow up their incredible debut with another strong sophomore season? We'll definitely soon find out, but let's get into it. The way we're going to do this show is we're going to do a little brief season preview. We're going to get a bet on and a bet against team from me and from my teammates here on the ice, guys. A team that they like coming into the season, a team that they think could be undervalued, and then a team they don't like, a team that could be overvalued a little bit going into the season. We'll also throw out a couple of Stanley Cup futures that may have some value, may present some value in all of our opinions. So let's start with Alex B. Smith in that regard. I'm going to get you, Alex, and everybody one by one. We'll give you your bet on and bet against team all in one motion, one by one. So, Alex, from you, a bet on team you're high on coming into the season, and a bet against team, a team that you think could fall back a little bit this year.
Well, both teams are within the metro that I'm going to be talking about, the Metropolitan Division. The team that I'm really liking and I'm high on is the New Jersey Devils. I mean, this is a team that made some big strides and got back in the postseason last year. You had Taylor Hall, the reigning MVP, coming in, had 93 points. Thing is, this team doesn't have a lot of depth. They have a lot of young, gritty guys I think are just slowly, buying into the system and developing over time. There's not a whole lot of flashy names except Taylor Hall, Nico Hischier. Those are the two main guys. And you look at all the injuries that they suffered last year. They had a lot of guys, mainly, especially in net. Corey Schneider, their main backstop guy who logs a ton of games, ton of minutes, missed a lot of last season. Keith Kincaid stepped up and proved himself to be a more than formidable backup. And I think that's something we have to really keep note of this season. Teams that have goaltending depth, that's bigger than anything else. If you have two goalies that you can truly rely on, those are the teams that we're going to see last throughout the season and make runs into the Stanley Cup. Look at Vegas, for example. I mean, they had all kind of goalie issues early, and they basically ran 5 goaltenders at one point. All of them did more than enough to keep them, floating along. So New Jersey is a team that I think they have the goaltending, they have young talent, they're going to be moving up. But a team I think that's stepping back in that regard is the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a team that I was really high on last year. Last couple of years, actually, and they just haven't been able to quite get over the hump. We see them struggle. They had some last few years, they've had really good runs in the regular season. We've seen them rattle off 12, 13, 14 game winning streaks. As soon as they get into the playoffs, they kind of fall apart. They completely collapsed in that series, had a 2-0 lead, then completely blew it against Washington in the first round. You look at Sergei Bobrovsky. He's a guy, once again, lots of minutes logged in. Has carried this team on his back, but he doesn't have a solid number 2 backup. And when he struggles, the rest of the team struggles with him. There's so much competition in that Metro division. Obviously, Washington, the reigning Stanley Cup champion, Pittsburgh, the you could say the formidable dynasty of this decade. Philadelphia is getting better. New Jersey getting better. I think Columbus is going to be on the way out. So New Jersey is a team that I played over the point total, 91.5. That was actually my best bet of point totals I had. And I'm looking at Columbus going under 97.5 points. I think they're going to actually even miss the playoffs as well.
There you go. New Jersey over, Columbus under for Alex B. Smith going into this season. Let's get Andrew in. Your bet on and your bet against team coming into the season. Andrew, go for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might want me to talk about Montreal Canadiens, but We'll get to that at some point, but I'm heading into two different, one Western Conference team here for my bet on team, Ian, and it's going to be the Edmonton Oilers. I think that when you see a team that, of course, with a talented superstar, notably top 1-2 best player in the world, Connor McDavid, we've got a team right here that had a really big fall off year last year. I mean, 2 years ago, they're in the playoffs. They got out in the first round. They did not look like the team they wanted to look like, and Connor McDavid was very disappointed. They came into last season, and the goaltending wasn't there, in my opinion. The defense wasn't there, and they couldn't put up consistent numbers on a nightly basis. But coming into this season, I know we're asking a little bit more out of them this season, but I really do think last season was 78 points. This season, the point total, 91.5 points. I think it's doable. I watched pretty much all of the preseason games for this Edmonton Oilers team, and I understand, I'll say this throughout the day, but preseason is not always indicative to what you see in the regular season, but I think a lot of stuff can carry over and can translate. And, one thing I did see was the speed and the ability for these Edmonton Oilers defensemen to get the puck out of their own end. And I think that was the biggest problem for them last year. And I noticed it time and time again. And of course, we've got guys like Jesse Puljujarvi and of course, Ty Ratty. I mean, these are two guys that looked unreal. They look so comfortable. These are young guns that, are moving up in the system for this Edmonton Oilers team. And of course, Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, even Lucic. I think that he'll play a better offensive role this year. I think, as we know, the league is moving away from that whole enforcer role and, kind of the stage fighting type thing. So I think that with these guys combined, I think we'll see a lot of points and a lot of good games here from this Edmonton Oilers team. The biggest concern that I have is, of course, goaltending. I don't know about you guys, but I'm comfortable with, Adam Larson and Darnell Nurse on the blue line and those guys, Oscar Klefbom. I'm comfortable with the defense, but honestly, Talbot scares me. Talbot's a guy that I can't really rely on a night-to-night basis. He's a guy that I've kind of had troubles kind of being able to trust, and he's going to be the backbone for this team because we know this team's going to be able to put up goals. We know this team's going to be strong, but if he can't have a good start to games, if this team can't feel comfortable having him back there behind them, it will be a struggle. But for me, I'll go over the 91.5 point total on the season for the Edmonton Oilers. As far as bet against team, I think this one's quite obvious, but I'm going to go with the New York Rangers. I think that this is a team that's on an absolute decline. I tweeted out a few days ago that King Henrik may no longer be the king, and that might have been a couple years ago that he might not be the king anymore. But again, based off the preseason, based off what we saw last year, this team's on the decline, in my opinion. I think that this team is going to be, you talked about a bet against and bet on team, Ian, but I also want to look at, bet over and under trending teams. And I think this will be a massive, massive over bet on team as well. Of course, we got guys like Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider and guys like that, Matt Zuccarello, but those aren't your all-stars that are going to lead a team. Those aren't your standout players. As far as I mentioned, like the Edmonton Oilers with McDavid, Draisaitl, Strome, and those guys. I mean, you look at what we've got here, Kevin Hayes, Zibanejad, Ryan Spooner. Those aren't your all-star players that are going to stand out. So for me, I'm going to be betting against the New York Rangers and bet on Edmonton Oilers.
All right, good stuff from Andrew McGinnis right there. And, you talk about some teams that have goaltending issues. There's a couple. I mean, the one that stands out to me is Carolina. I love everything about that team coming into this season except their goaltending. I don't know what I'm going to get from Scott Darling. They get Peter Mrazek, who's done absolutely nothing the last couple of years. He's been terrible. He was terrible at the end of his time in Detroit. It was not very good. It started out well with Philadelphia last year when he got there, but it just fell off a cliff for him in terms of his performance. And I love the defense there with Carolina. I think a lot of those young offensive dynamos for Carolina that nobody's heard of, nobody knows much about, they're going to perform better than people think. But it's that goaltending, and Andrew makes a good point. It is impossible in the NHL circa 2018-19 to win without quality goaltending, or at least good goaltending on a nightly basis. And that's my biggest worry with Carolina. Carolina is that one team that stands out where I like everything about the team except the goaltending, which is definitely a suspect area for them. Let's get to Dana Lane next. His bet against team going into this season. Dana, what did you select?
Well, guys, I'll just stay right here at home. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights may be a team to bet against, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to be effective. Well, it's not. It doesn't mean they're not going to be effective as the season goes on. But let's remember what they have to overcome in the beginning and the question marks that are in front of them to start the season. I mean, let's first take a look at their first line. I mean, we know that Marchessault and Riley Smith and William Karlsson were completely dynamic last year. I mean, if you looked at William Karlsson at the beginning of the year, and I know I did it every single day. I mean, we looked at, William Karlsson, we just shook our heads and had no idea, what this guy was going to bring to the table. If you look at his shooting percentage, you have to ask yourself, I mean, obviously that shooting percentage probably is not going to be the same this year. So what does that equate to offensively for them? So that first line, I would think would take a little bit of a step back just from a point total wise, just because I have no idea what I'm going to get out of Karlsson, and we don't know what player he is. We don't know if he's a 40+ guy, which he probably isn't. He's somewhere probably in that 30 to 35 range. It helps obviously playing on that line. And then you roll on over to the second line. Now I watched Stastny and Pacioretty play. I think they're still trying to develop their chemistry. I see them in practice and, they're working hard for sure, but I think it's also very important who's going to be on their right side. And we looked at Eric Holla potentially is going to be on the right side, but we know that Eric Holla played center last year. So there's a transition for him. And so I guess the overall point is it's not that I don't think Vegas is going to be as good. I just think and as good does not necessarily equate to what I think they're going to do in the standings or a point total. I think they'll be better in the playoffs because honestly, people always say, well, okay, how are you going to get rid of Pirano? How are you going to get rid of Neil? And, Tatar's out of here. And obviously Tatar didn't pay dividends the way George McPhee thought he would, but, still a veteran guy in the locker room. And you bring in Pacioretty and you bring in Stastny, you bring in a Nick Holden. And I think they're better defensively, which once the chemistry starts to develop, actually may be better for them offensively because I think that they will create more offensive chances through better defensive play and not be so deep in their zone at times because teams were just throwing the puck in and trying to get it deep, and that was the way they were trying to create offense. But I think they're going to be even more relentless through all three zones the way they tried to play last year, and they were very effective. But I think they're going to be even more effective playing that brand of hockey. Plus, on top of that, you throw in the Nate Schmidt thing. I mean, Nate Schmidt's going to be gone for 20 games. You also throw in the fact that Shea Theodore just got to camp, and Shea Theodore just played his first exhibition game the other night. So how is Colin Miller and Braden McNabb going to, how is their chemistry going to be? How is Shea Theodore and Derek England, who played together last year, but obviously didn't get some exhibition time? So when we're talking about team totals and over-unders as far as betting on the Knights, there's a lot of things in the beginning that might hold them back under that number. Once they get past that 20 game mark, then all bets are off. But I think that first 20 games, I think there's going to be a little bit of a chemistry issue, which may push this team under the point total. And yes, could I see them win a division? Absolutely. But could I see them sneaking in, in the A spot or, the second one or the two wild card spots? Absolutely as well. And that's not a reflection of how I feel about them. That's just a reflection of how great the conference is. The other team that I would say that I would bet on, and I know it's so easy to say, but guys, I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, they look on paper, which I know we don't win championships on paper, but the Lightning look as good as anybody in this league right now. And listen, you got Kucherov and Stamkos and JT Miller probably on that first line, and with Braden Point and Palat on that second line. I mean, show me a better top two lines. So I mean, to me, they're a bet on team for sure. I think they go way over their point total, and Vegas is probably a team that goes under. So those are my two.
All right, Tampa over, Vegas under from Dana Lane. There's no homer there. That is a unbiased, true opinion there for Dana Lane. Let's get to Jimmy now. Bet on, bet against team for him upcoming season. Jimmy, what you got for us?
Well, first off, I will just say at the beginning of Dana's amazing presentation there, I was like, is he nuts? I couldn't believe it. Like, but then you won me over, man. They make a lot of sense there. You know, there's going to be some chemistry issues there, and the whole Nate Schmidt thing, I think, is very underrated. That's a story to watch, and I think that nobody's talking about. So good on you for bringing that up, and I can see what you mean now. You convinced me there, Dana, so good on you. And I think, though, you're right that they could be that type of team that, you know, gains steam as the season goes on. And guess who did that last year? The Washington Capitals, who ended up beating them in the Stanley Cup final. If you go back and look at their year last year, you look at the end of October, November, nobody was thinking they were going to make the Stanley Cup final, let alone win it. So good points there by you, Dana. I'll start with the bet against team right now. And I know that everybody, you know, is looking at the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens as teams, obviously, that are going to really struggle and be battling for the rights to Jack Hughes. Of course, Ottawa will have to hand those rights over to Colorado because, well, they're just not smart. I think that I definitely think they're two bet against teams, but a team that nobody seems to be looking at as a bet against team. And I mentioned this in my first piece for SBR when I was talking about teams that are getting too much love. And I think that right now they're just living off their past when it comes to how the odds makers and the fans and the media look at them. And, you know, people say, well, they've still got this guy, they still got that guy. It doesn't matter. The Chicago Blackhawks, their dynasty is done. I'm sorry, Chicago, it's over. And you look at that team right now, they've got aging stars. They haven't done a good job at really filtering in younger players. They had a great young player who, for some God unknown reason, they decided to trade to Columbus and Artemi Panarin there. And they ended up trading the guy that they got from again. So I just think that they're in a steep decline right now. I wouldn't even be surprised if, you know, come Thanksgiving, Joe Quenneville's looking for work. I think it could get that bad that fast. And I think it goes back to the reasons you guys said for Carolina there, and we've mentioned it for a couple teams, is goaltending. I just don't have any faith in a Crawford who has been concussed so many times. And, you know, I feel bad for him. I'm almost worried about him. Like, it might be time to hang him up soon if he gets another concussion here, because you got to think of what your life is going to be like after hockey. And then you bring in Cam Ward, who, you know, I mean, he was great 12 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe 8 we'll give him, but he's not good anymore. So I think the Chicago Blackhawks are a team to bet against. As far as a team to bet on, I'm going to go to a team that I said right in the beginning when you guys introduced me, and that's the San Jose Sharks. This team in the last couple of years, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, you know, coming into the season, people are really writing them off and saying, okay, well, they missed their window there, and San Jose is going to go on a decline. But then they go and they get Martin Jones. But that's, by the way, from the city I'm in here right now. And I really do think when all is said and done, or maybe even now, they won't admit it, but I think the Bruins really regret trading Martin Jones, because I don't think they realized what they had in the 16 minutes that they did have him. Because remember that, it was like they got him, they flipped him right away. But I just think Martin Jones is a very underrated goalie. And then we'll go out from the goalie there. And I think right now they arguably have the best blue line in hockey. You got Vlasic, who is probably the premier shutdown guy of his generation right now. You got a Justin. I mean, I'll get to the guys that everybody's talking about, but you got Justin Braun, who I think this kid gets no love around the league. But if you watch the Sharks a lot, I tend to stay up a lot because I've got insomnia, so I'm always watching the late games, or I'll watch it when I come home from a Bruins game. And this kid is something special, and he's not getting enough love around the league, like I said. And then you look at the big two right there. You know, Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns. Can you imagine what this power play is going to look like? Obviously, they'll probably spread them out. They'll put one on power play one on power play two, because they don't want to be too top heavy. But there'll be times when they do have it all out there at once, and maybe you got Couture or Thornton on there. And let's not forget the guy that they got last year that really caught fire when he got over there, and they just signed him to a big deal. And I think, unlike most guys who sign a big deal and then decline in their first year, I think Evander Kane is going to be huge this year for the San Jose Sharks. So I think they're loaded there, and I love DeBoer as a coach. Again, I see these guys hoisting the cup come June.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Buffalo Sabres, you're sick to your stomach. You saw Evander Kane basically leave your team on bad terms, out the door, goes to San Jose, and he absolutely was phenomenal for them down the stretch in the regular season. And then the playoffs, he was great. And no doubt, it seems like that change of scenery and that breath of fresh air did a hell of a lot of good for Evander Kane. And did a lot of good for the San Jose Sharks as well. So Jimmy likes San Jose, does not like Chicago. That's where he's going with bet on, bet against, which leaves me with bet on and bet against. Now, when I go about doing these, I don't necessarily go for teams that are right near the top contending for a cup when it goes to bet on. I'm just looking for a team that I think could be much, much, much improved from last season to this, even if it was a bottom rung team last year, and a team that I think could be profitable and plus units if you bet on them every single game this season. So with that in mind, bet on team for me, I'm digging deep into the old bargain bin here. I'm going with the Arizona Coyotes to be a bet-on team this season. Yeah, that's right. The Arizona Coyotes this season. Look, you know which goalie had the best numbers of any goalie in the NHL from January onward last year? Antti Raanta. That's right. Antti Raanta. He was absolutely phenomenal for this team when they got hot late in the season and they were playing spoiler left and right and handing L's left and right to some of the better teams in the NHL. Antti Raanta was the backbone of that. He was finally healthy, and he played absolutely stellar in between the pipes and the cage for the Arizona Coyotes. You look at what they've got in terms of young talent. I think Derek Stepan proved his worth as a first-line center last year. How about the year Clayton Keller had? I think a young player that was phenomenal last year, great offensive skill, great finishing ability, decent speed, good playmaking. Now on that top line with the confidence after a good season last year, I think he can take another step forward. How about Richard Panik? I mean, this is a guy that's bounced around Tampa, Toronto, Chicago. He's been there. He's been everywhere. You know, he's like Johnny Cash. He's been everywhere, man. Yeah, he's been everywhere.
You won me over there, brother.
Yeah, Richard Panik. I mean, he's been everywhere. And he's found a fit and a home in Arizona. He was terrific for them after they got him. They have Vinny Hinostroza, guy that also played in Chicago. And this is the big one. Alex Galchenyuk from the Montreal Canadiens comes in here. And guess what? Unlike the dopes in Montreal who had him playing wing when he's a natural center, when he was more productive at the center ice position, and they had him playing wing instead, you know, Arizona's actually going to put the guy at center where he's more comfortable, where he's more productive, where he can be a better hockey player. Yeah, that's right, Marc Bergevin. We're not going to pigeonhole this guy and ruin his career and send his career into the ditch, putting him on wing when he's not even close to as good at the center ice spot. Wake up, guys. That's why you're where you are, going down in the sinkhole, and I think Arizona's going up, and they're going to prove it this season. I think Alex Galchenyuk is going to be a great ad. They're putting him in that second-line center spot. I think that's big time. They get the big deal done with OEL, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That's huge, locking him up long-term. Now, the captain of this Arizona team, fantastic job by John Chayka, the young, bright GM. This is a young, bright GM type of league now. We got young, bright coaches in the NFL. Look at Sean McVay. We got young, bright GMs now in the NHL and in other sports too. John Chayka, Arizona. You got Kyle Dubas now in Toronto. I mean, you go on down. The guys that are in their 30s right now, young guys. It's a young man's league, both not only on the ice but in the management department too. And you're seeing that. I think John Chayka's done a great job with this Arizona team. I think you're going to see them. I'm not saying make the playoffs. It's going to be hard. It's going to be damn hard for this team to make the playoffs. The West is so good, so top heavy, and so deep. But I think Arizona is going to get good prices in the betting markets game to game. You're going to have a plus unit return on investment this year, I think, with the Arizona Coyotes. And that is why they are a bet on team for me going into this season. Bet against another team, the other team that starts with the letter A in the NHL. Talk about the Anaheim Ducks. We've got issues here, folks. We have some serious problems here. Well, we know Corey Perry, injured, now is going to be out indefinitely for this team. We know that's big. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about a philosophy problem here with the Anaheim Ducks. This is a team that's played kitty by the door, defensive hockey, wait for the other team to make a mistake, sit back, and try to generate our offense that way. Under a coach that's played that way his whole career, or coached that way his whole career, Randy Carlyle. Well, now Bob Murray's adamant after the season, after they got their doors blown off and looked horrendous and embarrassing in doing so by the San Jose Sharks last year, saying, we've got to play fast. We got to play fast. We need younger legs in here. We got to crank up the tempo. We got to get the puck moving north-south. What if you don't have the personnel or the coach to play that way? Randy Carlyle doesn't play that way. And now you're forcing Randy Carlyle into a spot that he's not comfortable in. He doesn't want to play up and down run and gun hockey. And now the GM, Bob Murray from upstairs, is saying, oh, wait a minute, you got to play that way. Because I saw us play the way we have for years in the playoffs, and we got totally embarrassed playing that way. So there is a philosophy problem right now, I think, with the Anaheim Ducks. And do they have the young guns to execute that system? That remains to be seen, I think, when you look at the roster here for this Anaheim team. So, yeah, they're not going to have Perry at the beginning. Adam Henrique's going to have to be big. Jakob Silfverberg's going to have a really big-time season. Ricard Raquel, can he keep up what he did? Can Getzlaf stay healthy? They have high hopes for this Troy Terry kid, a very good U.S. college player in the past that they think is going to help them in the speed quotient. But you got concerns here, definitely, that this new transition into a more up-tempo, push the pace, run and gun system is going to work. They want their defensemen to be more active in the offense. That's another thing they talked about. They actually have a decent blue line. I like a lot of the blue liners this Anaheim team has. Don't get me wrong. When you look at Hampus Lindholm, Fowler, again, another guy. Can he stay healthy? Brandon Montour. There's a big drop-off, though, with that bottom pair, and that really does worry me for Anaheim. And John Gibson, when healthy, he can be Gibson's finest. He can be one of the best goalies in the NHL. But are we going to get a full season of health and an injury-free season from John Gibson? We haven't seen one for years. So everyone's talking about Gibson's going to keep Anaheim afloat. Well, can he keep himself on the ice long enough to keep this team afloat is my big concern here with the Anaheim Ducks. So there's just so many moving parts. They want to go fast, play fast, push the pace with a team that I'm not sure is built to do it and a coach that I don't think wants to do it. You got some issues there. So I think Anaheim, and look at the division there in the Pacific. Vegas is not going anywhere. San Jose is great. I think LA could be a little revitalized this season. I think Calgary is due for a big bounce back season this year. Who's going to drop? Someone's got to drop. I think it's this team, the Anaheim Ducks, bet against for me. So there you go. Arizona bet on, Anaheim bet against for me going in to the new season. With that in mind, let's break down Wednesday's games. Let's get to Wednesday's card. We have 4 games. At the end of the show, we'll have a best bet from everybody, as well as a Stanley Cup future recommendation from everybody that has some value in their mind. So let's start with the Montreal-Toronto game. First game on deck on the rotation order for Wednesday. Toronto, as you would expect, laying north of -200 here, -210 to -220 on the money line in most places. Total an even 6 right across the board. As far as I'm concerned, Toronto's a team I'm definitely not going to bet against them in this spot. I think if you like Toronto, you got to go puck line here. More importantly, I'm not betting any Toronto game under yet. Not even maybe. Even at 6, you look at this Toronto team, this power play was lethal in the preseason. It's going to be lethal, I think, this season. Montreal, believe it or not, Claude Julien. Here's another guy like Anaheim. He's talking about we got to be a little faster. We got to push the play a little bit more. We think we've got a roster now that can do that a little bit. I expect this to be a run and gun game. Toronto's not changing their spots. They've got Warts on the back end, Warts that I think could keep them from being a really true Stanley Cup contender when it's all said and done. Frederik Andersen's going to be probably facing a lot of rubber again this season. It's a team that defensively and even in the preseason showed it. They've still got a ways to go to clean that up. Who are you going to hang your hat on defensively for the Leafs? That's going to be their issue. They're going to score 5, 6, 7 a night in many instances. But can they keep the puck out of their own net? That's going to be the issue. I'm going to see, get on the overs now with Toronto, because if they're as run and gun as I think they're going to be early on, the 6s are going to be gone. You're going to get 6.5 sooner rather than later. Take advantage of the 6 right now while it's there. I'll be going over 6 here with Montreal and Toronto on Wednesday night. Raise your hand who wants to talk about this Montreal-Toronto game. I know Andrew's in on it. Has anyone got an opinion on it? Jimmy does. Let's go to Jimmy. Montreal-Toronto. What do you like here, side or total?
Well, I'm totally with you on the over. I'm just going to ride the over with Toronto. I'm like you, though, until it dictates otherwise. Jump on that over all year long. They proved it last year, and then you throw Tavares in there as well. The one thing I could see, though, when it comes to that, and I don't think it's going to happen now. I'm with you now. But as the season goes on, you guys get to wonder, and it's something to keep an eye on. Does Babcock, because he's one of these coaches, you were just talking about Carlisle and Anaheim, they kind of know which direction are they going in, and sometimes they're conservative, sometimes they're wide open. Babcock, that's a great underrated story right now, is how this guy's kind of switched his philosophy. He would never let the horses run wild like he does in Toronto. When he was in Detroit, it was very confined, and he's looking at it now and he says, look, I got all this skill. I might as well let him go. And so I think that's something to keep an eye on there. But as far as this game goes, an interesting thing to me will be if Montreal, I like Toronto and I like the over in it, but if Montreal could come out and somehow have the lead by the end of the first period, you never know. But I really love the over in this. I like Toronto. And I think Montreal, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Carey Price too. With that team in front of him as we go on into this season, not just tomorrow night, but as we go on in this first month of season, people are going to wonder, is Carey Price back? I don't know with the team in front of him, guys, if it's fair to even ask that question. Is he back? Because can Carey Price or any goalie, I don't care if it's Patrick Waugh, could they succeed behind what might be in front of them this season? So I think not only bet the over for Toronto games, but you might want to bet if Price isn't quite back yet, and then you have that team in front of him, ride the over in Montreal games as well, because there's going to be a lot of goals going into their net.
No, and it's obviously the guy that I want to watch for Montreal closely is going to be Jesperi Kotkaniemi, a guy that's made this team, obviously a first-round pick.
He's going to get crushed. I think he's ready.
We'll see. They better hope he's ready because, again, their center ice depth is horrible. It's piss poor. They need this guy to not only be in there but play well. We'll see if he can. Let's get to Andrew with Habs and Leafs. We'll have to go very quickly through these 4 games. But, Andrew, go for it, Habs and Leafs.
Guys, I think that's really the biggest debate right now is, Carey Price on this team. Is he on a decline? Is he not playing well? Or is it just the fact that he has a really poor team around him for the past couple of years? And that's kind of what everyone's been asking. And I think overall, guys, in my opinion, we can say, of course, the Habs were not good last year, but I don't think Price was either. I think that he's due for a bigger year this year, and the team surrounding him this year is a little bit more cut to score more goals in front of him. So I think they'll do a little better than people say. That's why I'm saying I predict they'll be better than people say. But, however, I am still not high on this defensive core. It's absolutely pitiful to watch. You mentioned it, Ian, that, Claude Julien wants this team to move the puck up the ice more, be a quicker team. That's pretty much all they have going for them right now. I mean, these two teams met last week on Monday and on Wednesday. On the first game, it was pretty much just the Habs playing the Toronto Maple Leafs AHL team. It was a complete dominant performance by the Montreal Canadiens. They won 5-1. And, of course, all of a sudden, it's pretty much the starting rosters from both teams playing on Wednesday, and it was a 5-3 win, covering the over easily. And I think that's what's going to be the case with both these teams, like Jimmy said, throughout the entire season. Again, guys, and we're going to go through this lineup for a second here. We got top defensive pairing. First of all, me and Ian always talk about this. Jeff Petrie is not someone you can count on. He is not. When he has the puck, guys, I get worried. When Jeff Petrie is handling the puck in the defensive zone, it scares me. And the fact that he is on the number 1 defensive pairing, it's absolutely atrocious for me. I'm not going to sit here and just roast this guy, but the fact is, I can't believe that we just named Shea Weber the captain, who's going to be injured for the next little while. Of course, we got Subban over there in Nashville just living it up. And we look at this decor and we're trying to build a team. The reason why we can't call that, and it's very true, the reason why we can't call this Montreal Canadiens team a rebuild is because of Carey Price. There's no doubt in my mind. And we've got the Ottawa Senators over there, just can't say the word rebuild enough because they're so excited about it. And they're trying to tell their fans, But as far as this game goes, I'll just quickly agree with you guys. I mean, we're gonna see so many 6s with this Leafs team, and I mentioned the 6.5 numbers. We've got just look at the center depth: Tavares, Matthews, Kadri, and Lindholm. I mean, it's unbelievable. The fact that you've got Kapanen on the 4th line, the top 6 is just unbelievable. Hyman, Tavares, Marner, Marlowe, Matthews, Ennis. I mean, how good did Ennis look in the preseason? He's filling that role very, very nicely for Nylander. And yeah, just real quickly, and you mentioned the Arizona Coyotes. Great pickup for them. 1-for-1, Max Domi, Galchenyuk. I mean, that's great. What does he do in his debut with the Habs? Goes out and sucker punches Ekblad. And, I'm not going to get too into that, but the fact is, my whole stance on that, Ian, I'm not mad about him trying to be tough and start something. It's more about you got to prove to yourself that, hey, look, you're now an offensive guy. You have to be able to prove that you can be an offensive player because that's all that they need for you. That's what the Habs are asking of you. They're not asking you to be tough. If you have to drop the mitts every now and then, you have to step up, make a huge hit, go ahead and do it. But this is not what your role is going to be on this team. You're supposed to be one of the best players, one of the top scorers on this team. I think I feel bad for, I played for the Halifax Mooseheads I always talk about here in junior, the guy that I saw in Halifax for years, Jonathan Drouin. There's going to be a boatload of pressure on him coming into this season. And of course, you got a guy like Brendan Gallagher, who's, your average work hard guy. And, he not really a guy you can count on to score goals consistently. He had a good preseason, and last year he progressed as the season went on. But you got a lot of guys that are just, you don't know what to expect from them. Of course, Kokoniemi, like Ian said, he's excited to see what he's going to do. I thought that when you looked at him in the preseason and you watch all the tapes, you watch what the analysts are saying about him, he really does seem like he knows where to be on the ice. He seems very comfortable out there. Of course, he's played with men before. He's played professional. He's played at that top level. Of course, the NHL is way different, a lot more physical. Jimmy, you said he's going to get crushed. I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. They'll have to be very careful with how they play his minutes, where they put him, and what kind of situations they put him in. But they're currently putting him with Drouin and Joel Armia, and I think that'll be a good line for him. I think Drouin and Kokoniemi will spark a lot of chemistry. But again, guys, you can't really go anywhere. You can't go wrong with taking the over 6 in this one. I think it's going to be a consensus along with all the ice guys on this one. If we're getting a 6 with the Habs and the Leafs, a 6 in any Leafs game at any decent price, you got to go with the over. But I'm sitting here and looking at these two lineups, guys, and the fact that we're getting around plus 140, 145 at some locations for the Leafs on the puck line, you can't really second guess that either. So my bet on this game will be the over as well, though.
All right, very good. All right, next up, we've got Wednesday night hockey, the new look Wednesday night hockey, NBC Sports Network, Bruins Capitals, as the Capitals raise the banner on their Stanley Cup championship in their home opener, minus 130. Washington home favorite, total 5.5, shaded to the over, about minus 120. Raise your hand. I think we'll let Jimmy talk about it. The Bruins are involved. Dana's involved. Let's get to Dana. Bruins Capitals. What do you like here?
Yeah, I'll just be real quick on this. I mean, normally Washington would be a go-against spot here because I think they're still celebrating their cup win, as they should. But the fact of the matter is that I think at least for one night, I think we will see the Washington Capitals put it together and be focused on getting off on a good note. Obviously, new coaching staff in place, so that is a negative as well. But for this one night, it might be a positive. It might be, let's go win one for the new coach. Let's go and show people why we won the Stanley Cup. And still, I mean, guys, that I love the Boston Bruins, and I love nothing more for them to have rates. The problem is like depth. We know about their top line. We know about Pasternak and Bergeron and Marchand. We know how great they are, but what we don't know is, the fact. For me, I still don't know where David Krejci is. I still need to see a full season out of him, or Jake DeBrusk or Danton Heinen. I mean, these guys, the further you get down the list, it really goes from the top to the bottom a lot quicker with the Boston Bruins than it does most teams. And then you get down to a third-line center like Sean Corrali, and it's at that point, you've lost all confidence. So I think at least for one game, I think the number is right. I do like the Washington Capitals to win their opening night game against the Boston Bruins, who, by the way, guys, you talk about depth in goaltending. You have no idea which Tuukka Rask is going to be playing this year. I mean, it probably is the off year because he had a great year last year, pretty quiet, but he had a good year last year. And B, are we really pinning our hopes on Yaroslav Halak? I can't do that.
Yeah, Yaroslav Halak. Well, that's the thing. They had Hubert last year as their backup, Anton Udobin, and he's another guy that's one game and just ice cold the next. It was a difficult situation, but Dana likes Washington to win on their home opener on banner night. Jimmy, Bruins Capitals. You've been following the Bruins a long time. What do you see from that Torrey Krug injury to start the season? That's a big deal. What do you see from them here?
Yeah, look, guys, I'll tell you what. That is definitely a huge deal, and I'm going to be very interested to see how that power play is run and how successful it is tomorrow night and going forward for the next 3 weeks. That's a big loss. And man, That poor kid, Torrey, man. He doesn't have any luck. He's coming back from that injury last year. But let's get right to this game. Look, I did a little research about a week and a half ago. I was just kind of starting to look at these games, and for some reason, I always felt like that the teams that won the cup the year before, that raised the banner in that first game there, I feel like they lose a lot. And sure enough, 9 out of the last 10 defending cup champions lost their first game. I'm going to stick with that trend. I like the Boston Bruins to go in there. I like Tuukka Rask to have a sensational game. And I like the Bruins because not only because of that trend right there, but also because they want to get the monkey off their back. The Capitals have absolutely owned the Boston Bruins over the last 4 years. It is disgusting, the stats that Braden Holtby has against them right now. And I think they would like nothing better to go back in and get that monkey off their back and also spoil the party there. I think you're going to have sort of that anticlimactic flat moment for the Caps when they come back onto the ice and actually play some hockey after the celebration. I see the Bruins pouncing on them early, getting a nice 1, maybe 2-0 lead in the first period, and they come out of there with, I'm going to say, a 3-1 victory for the Boston Bruins. So I like the Bruins and the under in Washington.
Bruins and under for Jimmy. All right, we got to really hurry. We've only got 3 or 4 minutes left. Calgary, Vancouver, I'm just going to spit out. This is a game that I got to play on. I'm laying the price with Calgary here in this game. I like Calgary this season. I'm going into this season thinking they're going to be much improved. Mike Smith is the concern. This is another team with goalie concerns. Mike Smith, can he stay healthy and can he be good? He was good in the preseason, which is something I was very happy to see. He looked healthy. He looked good in the pipes. Noah Hannafin's a great addition. Lindholm from Carolina, I think that's a trade that's going to benefit Calgary. James Neal, great pickup from the Vegas Golden Knights, signing him. Vancouver's Vancouver. I mean, they're just starting over from scratch. There's not a lot of depth. It's not a great blue line. It's a big issue in net. And Nilsson and company, I don't trust any goalie they throw out there right now, Vancouver. So Calgary to me is a reasonable price there. Alex B. Smith, I think you're in on Calgary, Vancouver as well. Yeah, just quickly on what you like there.
Yeah, I am, and I'd say play it now rather than later because that price is around $1.20, $1.25. That's going to move up. Calgary, like I said, they've brought some great additions that you mentioned. Having Hannafin, James Neal coming in. Like I said, the goaltending is their only spotty issue. Could possibly see it over here. Vancouver did wrap up the season well last year, but I think that had a lot to do with the fact that they're trying to give a send-off for the Sedin brothers. Obviously, they're now retired, so he's a complete rebuild for Vancouver. I think Calgary wins this game easily. That's my best bet as well.
All right, any Dana and Jimmy, you got anything on this game?
I like Calgary and over. I'll give it quick there. I'm with you guys. I love Calgary. I like them a lot this year. I think Mike Smith does have a good year, and I love Bill Peters behind the bench.
All right, very good. Last but not Dana, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, for me, guys, I mean, let's understand, and this is not for you guys, but obviously the people watching quickly. Listen, this is game 1. Let's watch a little bit before we dive into your bankroll. I mean, this is very important that you don't take what you saw in preseason and equate it to the regular season. So especially in the case in Toronto where they have, I mean, John Tavares and everybody wants to bet them and get all excited. Watch them play first. Make sure they got the chemistry before you start putting your money into this stuff.
Not a bad thought. Anaheim, San Jose. We've got Ducks and Sharks. Over 5.5, I think, has got value in this game. That's the way I'm going. Over 5.5 plus. Again, Anaheim's trying to push it now. I think it's a detriment to their back end. I thought their defense looked unsettled, trying to go up into this more up-tempo system. San Jose is going to be lethal offensively, especially when they get the man advantage with Burns and Carlson at the point. So I think they're going to score some goals here in this game. Anaheim defensively, I think, is going to be weakened because they're trying to think too much offense now. So see if that theory goes into play here. Over 5.5 is the way I'd go here. Ducks and Sharks. Anybody with something on that game, and then we'll get to best bets. Nope.
Yeah, Ian.
Guys, I'll take the Sharks in the under.
All right, Sharks in the under. Andrew.
Yeah, I just wanted to say as far as those past couple games go, I do like the Bruins as a decent plus price against the Capitals. As far as the Calgary game, I'm looking to go over the total. In a lot of Vancouver games, Calgary's been putting up goals, and I think they have a lot of talent, but I'm going to be fading this Vancouver Canucks team going over the total with them as well. And I understand what you're saying, Ian, about the talent level on both teams in this game, but I will think that my strongest underplay on that card is going to be in the Sharks and Ducks. I think both teams are strong offensively as far as the Sharks go anyway. But the defense on the Sharks will be tested a lot. I think that's more important to them than the offense. And 2 goalies I do like, so under 5.5.
Under 5.5, Sharks, Ducks. All right, very good. Here we go. All right, need a best bet for the Wednesday card and Stanley Cup future from each of you. Let's start with you, Alex, quickly. Best bet in Stanley Cup future.
My best bet, like I said, Calgary minus $1.25. Stanley Cup future, I'm going to go with something a little different. I'm going to go with a matchup. Tampa Bay versus San Jose. You can find it at a couple of shops at 28-1. I think that'll be my Stanley Cup final.
All right, very good, Andrew.
Andrew hates the card.
No, best bet's gonna have to be just the over in the Montreal Canadiens versus Toronto Maple Leafs. There'll be lots of goals in that game. Lots of question marks as far as the Montreal Canadiens go. They're gonna be a little jittery, trying to produce some offense. We know how bad their offense has been in years past. Of course, the Leafs, that stacked top six that they have, and of course, both blue lines aren't the best. And we'll have to see what Anderson and Price can do. So I'll go over in the Montreal Canadiens versus Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, I'm gonna have to look for the Sharks as well. I think that, as the season progresses, I think, guys, the odds will only get worse. So I think if you're going to be interested in them, get on it now.
All right, Dana Lane, best bet in future.
Future, it's Tampa's time. It's quiet on Tampa, just like it was quiet on Washington last year. I really like Tampa Bay to hoist the cup. And as far as the best bet is concerned, I mean, obviously I'm going to go with Washington. I just think that, like Jimmy said, I mean, Holtby's got their number and has had their number for a long time. And the Boston Bruins have wanted to break his jinx for a long time. So I don't know if it's a matter of desire anymore. So I'm going with Washington.
All right, Jimmy, best bet future.
I'm going to say the best bet tomorrow. I'm going to stick with that over, too. I'm jumping on that wagon there, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun game to watch if you're a Toronto fan, I think. So over there in the Toronto-Montreal game. Future, like I said, San Jose to win the cup. But I'm going to throw a curveball at you here, guys. And I'm taking, get ready here, the Florida Panthers.
Absolutely.
Out of the Eastern Conference.
I completely concur.
To win the Eastern Conference. You can get amazing odds on that right now. Just take it for the heck of it, guys. I'm not lying. Last year, I took Vegas to win the cup, and I was, 3 wins shy? You never know. So go out, have a fun bet like that, and if you're looking for a good one, take the Florida Panthers to win the East.
There you go. Florida to win. I do think they'll be improved. I definitely agree with the thought that they'll be better. For me, it's Calgary best bet against Vancouver, minus 125. Calgary to win the cup. I think that price is standing out to me like a sore thumb with a much improved group this year. Calgary Flames to win the cup. I like to go for the bargain bin, a good price. I think we've got that with the Calgary Flames. So Calgary all around for me, best bet and future. That's going to wrap up the show. We had to rush a little bit at the end, but we went through a good preview. So that's normally we're going to have a little more time to do game-by-game stuff like this for Thursday. Make sure you join us then. We'll be back Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern time with our next edition of the NHL Ice Guys. Man alive, is it great to be back. For Alex P. Smith, Andrew McGinnis, Dana Lane, and Jimmy Murphy, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Right side of campus coming up next. We'll see you again on Thursday.